understanding of what is our base assumption. And I think that currently we're sort of facing a bigger issue here, that this is a cultural narrative of who we are as people that has been influenced in some way by the discipline that I represent in some way, business studies, management, and economics at a larger scale. And so this is just to trace back a little bit of where we're coming from historically, and maybe where some of the ancient wisdom inside can help us to reposition.
We are living in tumultuous times, with an array of global crises challenging the way we think and do business. Einstein famously stated, "We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them." Still, the practitioners of mainstream business, as well as their teachers, seem to lack such an alternative way of thinking. As William Allen, the former chancellor of the Delaware Court of Chancery, notes, one of the marks of a truly dominant intellectual paradigm is the difficulty people have in even imagining an alternative view. At the Humanistic Management Network, our work on conceptualizing this much-needed alternative humanistic paradigm starts by laying out the dominant narrative of the current economistic paradigm. We argue that our understanding of who we are as people fundamentally influences the way we organize individually, in groups, in organizations, and in society. We present these two narratives in business: the economistic paradigm, the dominant model, represented by Homo economicus, that accurately represents about 1% of the population, and the alternative model, the humanistic paradigm, represented by the 99% of the population. While more scientific evidence supports the latter perspective on human beings, economics and management have mimetically adopted an understanding based on assumptions supporting the former. The understanding of human beings as uncaring and narrowly self-interested has influenced the way business structures are set up, limited liability, and focus on profit maximization. The humanistic perspective allows us to understand the importance of care, the notion of human dignity, and the evolutionary reasons why humans only survived when organizing for the common good. This more scientifically supported perspective allows us to envision organizations as caring communities that converge to produce wider benefits. The Humanistic Management Network has chronicled numerous organizations that follow the humanistic paradigm. The fact that many organizations are run successfully, and oftentimes better, proves that alternatives to the current economistic understanding of organizing exist. Reality proves possibility, and can thus inform theory. We argue that a focus on human dignity, understood as that which escapes all price mechanism and is valued intrinsically, can improve theoretical accuracy of current paradigms. If we set out to organize in ways that include the common good, we may be able to understand how business can contribute better to solving current global problems. To learn more, visit www.humannetwork.org.
But as you can tell, okay, the question I think to us has been much more informed by biology recently than physics, but I think there's this, as E.O. Wilson says, this emerging consilience of knowledge, this emergence, you could say wisdom or maybe consciousness, where we know basically that what we've always been knowing, that we are not that what we're being told in some way. And in my community, the business school community, living in New York, Gordon Gekko really represents who we think we are in many different ways, at least for a subset of the population that seems to be increasingly in positions of power. And I would say that, yeah, we have these two background stories, and it used to be this cartoon character that we used to highlight that. But we have those in reality, and I'm not speaking with too much authority on it, but psychopathy and sociopathy seem to be real phenomena, and there are people that are affected by it. They're the ones that typically, as evolution and biology will tell us, they shouldn't be surviving. They're parasites. They're parasites, but what we have done in some ways, created institutional frameworks where they are able to thrive. That is, one of them is the corporation. but we've built, I think, many other institutions that support the corporation, like the stock market, like the SEC in the United States, where you sort of basically assume that we're all greedy bastards, and that's what we're catering to. And therefore, we basically just have to accept it. And large part of education has been to unlearn what we've learned in Sunday school and growing up with our parents, and then sort of learn how to be a real businessman or a real politician. It's the same thing across the other professional schools if you go to law schools and other things like that. So we're saying we have these two background narratives, and despite all the evidence that we have, it seems that that one narrative is very sticky. And I've been trying to work with others in various ways. How can we unstick this? And in some way, it's an interesting, I think, historical background why Homo economicus, the story of us as reductionist, greedy bastards, is so sticky. It is because of some confluence of vanity, but also institutional legitimization of the process of business schools and economics to become a science. And by business people at the later, at the turn of the 18th to the 19th century, saying we want to be respected people. We want to have dignity the way that priests, lawyers, the other professional doctors have, which is by given an education, a degree, we are part of society. And so what was a typical trade school or a formation that was done through practice became a science-informed education. And what do you have to do to be a science? You have to be able to model. At that time, you have to show that you can predict things and that you are rigorous in the context of mathematics. That's the easiest way. So you make assumptions, and that's what happened with economics. There used to be a whole debate about what economics is. Historical school lost to the more formalistic school, and that's what the Chicago school represents. It's a much more technocratic mathematical formulation of science that then has been adopted by management and business schools to just basically, in some way, say, we're also relevant. We're also scientific. We also matter. And so the dominant subjects in business schools typically are finance and accounting. And the dominant institutions seem to be finance institutions at this point. There's a whole policy that is based on it. And the policy that is built on this wrong sort of image, and I'm trying to, if you can just put, thank you, showcase that it's a psychodynamic model, right? And here's a guy who's sort of the leading researcher on psychopathy, and he studied basically his population in prison, because that's what we typically do as society, as a good community. We put those people that are free riders away because they don't contribute, they're parasites. But he says, well, he could have just gone to the stock exchange, the people that are still clamoring for short-term profits, etc., 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 and have increasing power because they function very well in that context. Into the next. So in all the kind of theoretical justification for that model, here's a person, Michael Jensen. He's a nice guy, he has since changed, but he has provided a lot of the intellectual background through a theory called agency theory. And I'm just trying to give you the background because it's not just like everybody that hears that says this is nonsense. We're not like that. But there is this legitimacy to this old narrative that provides the stickiness to it. And I think unless we understand that, we can't really change the origin of it and then flip in different ways. So the next one, he sort of basically says economics will provide you with the solution to how we should organize. And this is what sort of the outcome is. The organization, others have said that the corporation is basically a psychopathic organization. So you see the problem of legitimacy where millennials now come and say, no, we want business to do more than that. And that's where the traditional business people, as Andrew was sort of showcasing, are saying, well, we don't know how to deal with that. We don't know how to deal with that expectation. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Occam's razor, but I think you were mentioning like Einstein's sort of quest in science. Of course, you want to have simplicity, right? So in some way, Homo economicus, we want more, we want to maximize. It's simple. It may be wrong as the sort of principle of science, but unless we really know better, we use it. So the question has been, how do we know better? And I'm proposing some heretical alternative, saying that we have maybe some of the insights already that can provide us the insights for a better way of who we are as people so that we can organize better. Based on the prior philosophy, ancient philosophy, even theology, the religions, I don't know, Hans Jung's work, maybe familiar to some, in terms of already studying all the narratives of spirituality and religions, saying and suggesting that yes, there are two principles that unite them this year, and we've talked about this, so this is not necessarily new here. But even Darwin, that most of us sort of know as social Darwinism, Spencerism actually, has already understood that and saying that morality in itself is a survival mechanism. We are moral beings, we're fundamentally moral. We might fight about it, right? What we think is good. But the question of the good behavior is intrinsic. We know that. That's an important question. That's why we have so many fights about things that are possibly not in our own interest to maximize it. So here's the slightly heretical proposition in terms of how we can understand people. That we are saying, rather than having one drive based on biology and evolutionary science, we sort of understand that why species are alive. They have a drive to acquire and they have a drive to defend. So they have food, they get food, and they need to be able to defend themselves. Basically, Homo economicus is that kind of model. And Homo habilis, the prior version of us as humans, was really that kind of a person, that kind of human. Now, if you sort of really reductionistically simplify and say, the next version of our species, Homo erectus, basically survived because she knew how to form nuclear families, how to build tribes. And that was sort of then a development of the brain where we are basically, as that species, very happy and feeling good when we are in a community. E.O. Wilson calls that phenomenon eusociality. There are 6 species that he says are eusocial, and humans are one. Ants, wasps, termites, and some other are eusocial. They're truly social. They're the only species that actually survive because they are social. The drive to bond, Paul Lawrence calls it. But then the next version of human that came around, sapiens, of course, signifies that we have gotten involved our brain to the degree that we understand things, that we can abstract, that we need to make sense of things, right? We're talking about purpose. Purpose is sort of this important thing. So with all the tools that we're able to create, the religion sort of arose, you can sort of see, and then people needed to make sense of things in various ways. Now, as a simple model of how we are as human beings, and we can do the next one, we can possibly say, simple, that there are 4 drives. The most modern version of economics will accept possibly that there are these 4 drives. But they will also say that the point is that we maximize the drive to acquire. More stuff, more. No matter what it is, it could be wealth, it could be power, it could be status. That's sort of the Michael Jensen version of the resource evaluative maximizer. So that you want more of whatever it is, right? And drive to build bonds, to build groups, etc. That would only serve that. So you do networking. You're all familiar with networking? Yes. It's an instrumental way of getting something else, right? Same thing with comprehension or purpose. Sometimes I feel it's used as an instrumental way to get more of something else, right? Okay. So that's the kind of economistic model. And we're suggesting, no, it's not about maximization, it is about balance. That when you study and what makes people thrive and happy, it is the balance, right? You all know that here. But in our current sort of organizing models, we don't really focus on that. We call it, there's a dignity threshold, right? There is sort of a minimum that we need to sort of organize for so that people are in some way, not necessarily happy, but they feel human. They're not human resources anymore. That's a typical term of this mindset. But they are actually human beings, and we value them as such. And that the organizing happens to either protect it, ideally though, through the application of practical wisdom, which is sort of a term that comes out of the the religious realm, the application of practical wisdom, you could also say consciousness practices, that we move that up, that we move that balance up. And economists always need a purpose. Of course, they say wealth and status or power. We would say it's well-being, for the lack of a better word, but well-being as that which actually Aristotle already said oikonomia is for. The origin of the world economics, or work of economics, is oikonomia, which was different from pragmatistike, which was money-making. And oikonomia was supposed to serve the polis, to increase oidemonia, the happiness. Okay? The morally based happiness, not just the Coca-Cola style drink it happiness. Okay? So I leave it at that for now, and I want to say that this, if you want to use it, can work on the individual level, can help inform group organizing, can help inform societal organizing in different ways. And there's a group of us, Chris and Andrew here, that are sort of saying, well, what if we sort of change the narrative in a way that moves away from the Gordon Gekko style assumption set towards something that helps us inform institution building, policy building, practice of organizing that is more along the lines of well-being. So it's called Leading for Well-Being, and I'll just show you another 2-minute clip if that's possible.
What is it that you really want in life? Researchers who ask this question find that most of us want to be happy and flourish. Eminent thinkers, from Aristotle to Adam Smith to the founding fathers of the United States to the King of Bhutan, agree that well-being is key to the good life. Yet, the dominant narrative of our time says he who dies with the most toys wins. It holds that material wealth equals success. This narrative has delivered a world of crisis: staggering inequality, economic volatility, environmental destruction, terrorism, mass migration, and climate change. There is a personal case, a business case, and a societal case for well-being. Words like love and practices of deep connectedness are entering the workplace. Purpose-driven companies outperform disengaged ones. Humankind has survived, not by being competitive, narrow-minded, egotistical bastards, but by being empathetic, caring, and compassionate, with people working collaboratively towards the common good. So, we are creating a community of learning to deliver regenerative solutions to some of the world's worst challenges. We have all of the technologies and ideas we need to solve the challenges facing us and to create a safe and just operating space for humanity. But we are not implementing them yet. Leading for Well-Being is a coalition of business leaders, policymakers, scholars, faith leaders, media experts, and change agents working together to create an economy and society in service to life. We are creating a world that works for 100% of humanity, drawing on the ancient wisdom traditions and the best of modern sciences. If this resonates with you, join our journey to facilitate a finer future.